So today's topic, reparations. Now, recently...
I'm rich, bitch!
So recently during the Democratic debate, I believe it was Marianne Williamson. Yeah. She brought up the idea of reparations and paying back black people, and then Twitter and the internet went aflood with all kinds of comments about reparations. And I think the topic is actually interesting. It always fascinates me. As someone who has nothing to gain from this, nothing to lose.
No, because you're African.
Exactly.
You didn't suffer from it.
I also don't live
So
in
you don't
America.
get paid. But me, I'm rich, bitch!
Much like most of you who hear this talk of reparations, immediately you guys go to, hey, this is absolutely asinine. It's ridiculous. Slavery was, 200 years ago. Why would we bring this up now? It's asinine. I'm going to give you guys a bit of historical context for why I'm making the case for reparations, and then let me know what you guys think, okay? So let's hear it out.
Reason number one.
First off, what I would tell everybody is to understand that while slavery may have ended when it did,
Yes.
Jim Crow's laws were not stopped until 1968. And even beyond that, you had issues like redlining that were happening that were economically, socially, and politically affecting black people's ability to advance as a population. Because these laws were focused on these minority groups based on the basis of their race, we also have to understand that from a governmental standpoint, there is an aggression. There is an act that was committed against black people. These laws were literally saying that black people could not go here.
Yeah.
They cannot apply for loans here.
Yeah.
You cannot give black people books if they were owned by a white person previously. It was all kinds of stuff like that. There was even confiscation of land and of certain people's property early on in the 1900s, where people lost a lot of the income that they may have had or may have given to their future generations.
Or they just bombed Tulsa.
There's all kinds of stuff. I mean, lynchings were still going on in the early 1900s. Like, a lot of people died. I think it's interesting for me that whenever this discussion happens, people are like, oh, that slavery happened then. I'm like, yo, the injustices that were happening to black people and African Americans specifically in America kept happening well beyond that. And so you have to keep that in mind when we talk about, oh, we should never pay them out. I also want to make another point that Japanese people who were stuck in internment camps during World War II, who were American citizens, were paid reparations by the U.S. government. So the idea that the precedent has never been set isn't true. Look at even how the justice system treated black people during those Jim Crow era, right? You were talking about black men being rounded up and being sent to jail for crimes that never happened. Now, on one hand, people who lean towards the right will say the absence of a father is a problem in the black community. Your fathers need to be more present. On the other, when your government is the one that is ripping black fathers from their children and from those families and creating that kind of environment, you are not even taking responsibility as a government for that crime, then that is also a great injustice. You cannot fault black people for not being present in their kids' lives and at the same time not take responsibility when you strip that right of them being present in their kids' lives.
For no reason.
1968, my mom was alive then. So you cannot say like this is the past is this. By that logic, we should have never paid reparations to the Jews or the Japanese people. Hell, you get injured, you want reparations because you feel like, oh, something happened to me.
What is done is done.
Move on. You're going to move on. You're going to figure it out eventually.
Your back and your neck, man.
The reason why we have the term reparations is to fix what was broken, to give people a chance who have wounds that are constantly affecting future generations.
And because it affects your living right now.
And I know for me, myself, when I left the military, I had a financial stimulus from my retirement plan, and result was able to propel myself into the career path I had right now. And without that financial stimulus, I can't guarantee that I would be in front of you making YouTube videos, that I would be touring across Canada doing comedy, because that was the basis, that investment gave me the boost I needed. So I cannot say that people who are going to get these investments aren't going to benefit from them greatly, because it might change lives. This is the case I'm making. I just think it's an interesting one. And even if you disagree, that's okay. You don't have to agree with the principle of paying these people out. I don't even know how you would create that distribution system, because you'd have to prove that the people that were affected by these laws, their descendants are going to get that. That being said, I do think it's absolutely intellectually dishonest when you laugh at the notion, because your history disagrees with you. What are your thoughts on reparations, if you have any?
I want my money, bitch. Because the thing that happened is that, see, it's dishonest because whenever you get hurt at home, when you get hurt at your job, you do get compensated for that. because something that happened at your work, and because you cannot work and provide for your family because of that. It handicaps you. It's a bit what happened then. It's exactly what happened then. I know. I hear some of y'all say, yeah, but when you work at the job, there's some of your money that's taken off from that. Fair, yes. But when you work in a country and you pay taxes to that country, that's a bit what that taxes and them taxes are for. What you're paying is a bit for that. Is a bit for all these things that you should get back. If in case something happens to you, which did, which clearly did, and that is affecting your lifestyle and the way that you live, the way that what you get and what you can provide. So you can call it and say that, oh yeah, ghettos, there's this in the ghettos and that in the ghettos, there's all that.
But you know why ghettos exist?
Of course.
Do you know why ghettos exist? It's because black people were not allowed to live in those suburbs. It wasn't like white people made the conscious choice like, oh, we need to. No, black people were not allowed to live in the same neighborhoods and buy deeds in those areas.
Even when they created their own little town, that town got bombed. Even when they tried to, you know what, we're going to try to live with you. No, you don't want that? Okay, we're going to try to get a job. Okay, you don't want to give us jobs. Okay, fine. Well, we're going to give it you don't want, we're going to get our land. That's our little land for us. We're going to do it. You're going to bomb that shit, set it on fire. Okay, so we're just going to live in ghettos then.
And so that's the problem. And you also have to consider some of the ways that people were affected that really hurt people. I'll give you guys a prime example. Black people were not allowed to take loans. And if you don't know how big that is, for someone who's trying to buy a home without a loan, that is quite possibly impossible. Right? And so people that were trying to buy homes were never going to be accepted. And what happened is that these black people would go off into these off-book loan sharks. And what happened was that, okay, this is the really interesting part. This is when we get into the minutia of this stuff. But they would apply for the loan. The loan shark would give them the loan for the house. But what would happen is that the loan shark would hold on to the deed. And so what ended up happening is that the tenant, who was really living as a renter, had no protections that most people get under the Renters Act. They were looked at as the people who had just as much responsibility as a homeowner, but they never actually had the deed, which meant that, let's say, if they no longer could pay for that spot, what ended up happening is that the loan shark would just keep the house in its entirety and all its value, and the person who had been investing this entire time never had any return, so they would lose the house. Do you understand? It's little stuff like that where you're economically stripping people of their ability to be viable and to provide for future generations, because at the end of the day, those who grew up in middle class to high class households have far higher chances of succeeding in life than those who grow in abstract poverty. And so these cycles perpetuate themselves. And when you confine people in these areas, when you jail them unjustly, when you don't give them the financial options that white people have to expand their horizons, then yes, you as a government have failed, and you as a government should pay reparation back to the people that you've treated unjustly. And as a nation that goes off to foreign countries, that spends trillions of dollars in fighting, and most people agree, yo, let's bring that money back here, let's pay our citizens back. These black citizens are also part of that nation. So that money should also go to help out the people who are suffering right here at home. So these are the points that I kind of looked at that kind of brought the whole picture together. And I'm like, yeah, that is some fucked up shit. That is some fucked up shit. And there's no way around it. And until America comes to terms with that, I don't think it can really say that it's had an honest discussion about race, racism, or the issues of the past. Because it's not enough for you to say, all right, we're no longer going to go do racist shit. If you took money from my place, if you stole my house, you need to give that shit back.
If your grandfather stole my grandfather's wallet and then gave it to you and you're not giving it back, I mean, so I still have my grandfather's wallet with my money on it.
Exactly. Or if you just took my grandfather, you can't pay me back for his absence. If you took my dad and my mom from me, you can't pay me back for their absence and how it fucked up my growth in life. So I would just tell people, be more cognizant of this argument and don't dismiss it as, oh, black people left this, that. There's an interesting take on this, and I think it's worth looking at. That's all I got.
Yup.
What else you got?
No, it's pretty much
I want my money, nigga.
Rich bitch!